if you've seen this before and you're coming back, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. If you guys aren't hanging out with me, if you guys aren't submitting music for review, this is essentially me just staring into a phone listening to music. That's not what I want to do. So I really appreciate y'all hanging out and submitting music. Devin Song Reviews doesn't exist if there's no songs to review. I've been a musician for now 21 years. I have been home recording. I built my home recording studio with my own two hands. That's kind of a metaphor for me learning the process of what home recording is and how to mix and master your own music. And independent musicians, this is a very common thing that you have to be able to do more if you want to take this seriously and you want to take that next step as a musician. There's so many things that you can do yourself with a little bit of help, and you don't necessarily need the label like you used to get up and going. That is what this show is all about, is to be a resource for independent musicians. Non-musicians can tune in and just have fun hanging out, because we do have a lot of fun here. Q&As always seem to get kind of off the rails. Each week I also have a musician spotlight. So if there's some musicians out there that I think are doing really cool things, I want to bring them on here for an interview just as a way to benefit them and maybe get some new ears on everybody's music. So that is essentially what Devin Song Reviews has turned into. It's this live show that I do every Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central. I'm just really happy to do this each week for you guys. So to start off today, June 18th of 2022, we are going to start off today with a band called Msking, Msking, and the song is called You and Me. Check it out, and I'll give you some thoughts. Also, make sure to grab you a cold one if you can, and clink. Cheers. Let's go. So right off from the start, I really like the way that the song is building right now. Her vocal is really nice. The sound is very wide. They're using the space very nicely. If you can hear how the reverb is being used on this, it sounds very much like everything was recorded in the same room, in like a live room. So yeah, just a good use of reverb. There's a heavier reverb than normal, but it doesn't sound out of place at all. Yeah, her voice is really drawing me in. So I'm hearing some low end, slight muddiness that is probably a result of not EQing the reverb, because there is a lot of reverb. But this is a good example of how rhythm guitars should be mixed, where they should be in the mix, because the drums are shining through. The rhythm guitars are very much where they need to be, and it's just allowing that vocal to come out. That's a high note right there, y'all. Some nice harmonies to close it out. Okay, so that was Msking with You and Me. Only a 2.5 minute song. If you've hung out with us at least one time before, you know my thoughts on short songs. It seems to be more normal to do these short songs. And I think the reason is that people just have an attention span that is a whole lot shorter than it used to be. That formula of how the song progresses has changed a little bit. I'm okay with a song being short if you're utilizing the time correctly, and I think they did a great job of that. That voice was very haunting in a way. Really drew me harmony in, and nothing was overdone or in the way. So when you have a vocalist that can hit notes like that and sounds like that, you really need to know as a musician how to stay out of the way of it. As a rhythm guitarist, it's hard for me to make sure that my guitars are fitting in the mix correctly, because when you are the guitarist, you want to hear your guitar. So whoever mixed this knew where the guitars needed to sit. They don't need to be the focus, they need to be the foundation for the rest of the instruments. Your drum set is what brings the energy. If you can't hear your drum set properly, you're going to lose your energy. They did a great job of that, and because we weren't trying to compete with the rest of the instruments, the vocal was able to come out and sit right in the mix. The only critique I have for that one, there was heavier reverb than what you would normally hear on the majority of the songs that you listen to. You have to be very careful about making sure that all the instruments sound like they are playing in the same room together. The thing that I heard there was some low-end muddiness. That was probably a lack of EQing the reverb. You really should EQ your reverb all the time. You don't need the lower frequencies of the reverb to come through. You want to kind of keep just the higher. It's going to make it sound cleaner, and you're going to avoid some muddiness that comes through if you don't. Fantastic song. Really enjoyed that, and hope you guys did too. Yep, we got already learning stuff. EQ the reverb. Fantastic. Jaded Basket Case said, oh, that high note. And yeah, I know what that means. It means you liked it. R. Aguilera says, nice song. N.Y. Geller said, that and short song gets radio play. Yes, short songs are going to get radio play. Songwriters and producers and labels out there, if they're going to listen to your song, if you're submitting it to labels or radio or anything like that, 4 minutes is pushing it. That's sort of the limit. 2.5-minute song is going to be good if you are taking advantage of every second of the song and doing it right. Next up today is a band called Jinx the Fox. Jinx the Fox, I think I saw you in here earlier. I think you're still with us, so wave so everybody can say hey. This is Jinx the Fox with a song called Headcanon. That was a nice way to bring in the song rather than just starting it. I know personally I have a hard time figuring out how to do little intros like that, so good job.
The story that we tell ourselves.
Really like the feeling of this song.
Inside of our heads is we can do what we please.
So there's a lead guitar there that I think is turned up too loud. It's getting in the way of the vocal some. Fantastic vocals. And I really like that lead that's coming in. It's being used sparsely and just adding a nice little indie flavor to it. I just think it's too far front. It's okay to push that in the back. So again, rhythm guitars, it's hard to get those to sit right in the mix. Again, I think they're too far front, and I can tell you that because that rhythm guitar is just, it's all I'm hearing right now. It definitely pushed the drums back, and it's just not, you don't want to do that. That vocal is so good, and the vibe of the song is so good. Just a little bit more attention to where the instruments are sitting in the mix would have definitely elevated this to a whole new level. See, right here, when everything's kind of brought down, it's very clear.
Is out of our hands. We are down on our knees, down on our knees before storms. Our wits in our wind make a difference.
I'm also having a hard time making out the kick drum over the bass. That bass line is fantastic, but it's outdoing the kick drum. So now we have some reverbs and delays that, again, just need to make sure you're EQing those, because if you listen closely, you can kind of hear how as we're adding more reverb and delay, it's getting muddier. Cool way to end it too. Absolutely fantastic song. Really love that. You jump over to Spotify. You guys are obviously doing something right. A little under 9,000 monthly listeners. That song right there, right about 115,000 plays. This is a good point to make here is the critiques that I'm giving, don't just take what I say and count it as 100% like this is what I've got to do. All I'm doing is letting you know what I hear so that we can get a little bit better as we move forward. The song is really, really great. The vocals are awesome. The vibe of the song was great. There are just a few mixing items that could have just elevated that song some. It doesn't take away from the fact that that's a great song. Obviously, you guys are having some success. I'm just some guy. I'm just letting you know what I hear. We had somebody say modern day Jimmy Eat World vibes from them. I feel that too. It was a very nice indie rock. That lead guitar that I mentioned, sprinkling in some of that indie feel, had a very good feel to it. Just a couple of mix notes to maybe just pay attention to as you move forward. Next time you're going to mix a song, maybe you just have something else to listen for. Things like, so 2 out of 2 today, we're talking about EQing reverb. And EQing reverb is something that I didn't know that I was supposed to do when I first started. And it's something that I had to learn because somebody told me about it. So all I'm trying to do here is maybe share something that, I'm letting you know about it so that you can get better and you don't have to learn these lessons the hard way like I did. I did a lot of songs before I really knew what I was doing. Practice makes better. It doesn't make perfect. Practice makes better. But I've learned a lot as I've progressed, and I only learned it because there were people out there, there are YouTube videos out there of people that are willing to give you some advice. If you can not be overly emotional and attached to your music, because that's a really hard thing to do as an independent musician. If you send off your song to be mixed by somebody else, they're not emotionally attached to it. So when you're mixing your music, it's hard to make decisions because of the emotion that's attached to it. I don't want you to take what I'm saying as anything negative, guys. This is purely just my thoughts and my input, and hopefully you take some of that and it helps you get better. Thank you for submitting that song. I really like that song, and I think everybody here did as well. Father Fahrenheit says, loved it. Goobister said, this is a bop. The Undercover Band says, great production. Jinx the Fox says, we might actually do a new mix on that song. It was the first one we did. If that is the first song you did, you are far and away ahead of a lot of people out there doing this stuff. I know what my first one sounded like. It didn't sound like that. Fantastic job. Everybody, if y'all like that song we just played, Jinx the Fox Band is here in the chat. Make sure to say hey, go give a follow here on TikTok and maybe also over there on Spotify. As always, if you like what you're hearing, go support musicians. All right, we're going to keep moving along. Markus, are you still hanging out with us? Because you're up next, bud. I just want to give a shout out to Markus real quick. Markus submitted his song last week during the live, and he hung out with us pretty much at least I think about half of the show, if not the whole thing. I took notice of that, and I appreciate the support, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to have your music played today. This is Markus Schukowski with a song called What It Feels Like. Another cool intro, bringing a lot of energy right away.
All these decisions, don't know where to go. Is it better to stay or just make a move to another place, to another state of mind and change?
So very poppy sound to the drum kit. think it's fitting really well. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, and you have to be really careful if you bring in a lot of instruments or a lot of elements. Always be looking for space in the mix. I think we're a little tight on the spacing when all of those instruments came in. Absolutely love the energy of the song, though. The vocals sound good. The doubles and the vocals, the doubles and the harmonies are working fantastically. Definitely has some electronic elements to it, which is, I think, goes really well with the snappy snare hit. So, I mean, the tone of your drum set can make a big difference. People tend to forget that.
Become the best.
I think it's a great tone. I love the delays on the guitar being used too. Awesome. Markus Schukowski with a song called What It Feels Like, and he is here in the chat hanging out with us. Said, thanks for taking the time to listen to my music. Happy to do it. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us and submitting your music. The instruments sounded great. Especially the drum kit, I think, was the perfect tone for the rest of the sound. It's just with the electronic elements that were brought in, there's a lot of movement and a lot of stuff that I can hear going on. And it's hard to really point out what my brain wants to listen to, if that makes sense. So what I mean by finding space in your mix, as you're going through and adding instruments, for a chorus or a hook like that, a good way of bringing in elements is to pan them wider so that as you're listening to it, you can keep things kind of more towards the center as you're going through. And then if you want to bring in elements just specifically to make the chorus sound bigger or a bridge or an instrumental, good way of doing that is just panning them outside of where you've been. Your brain hears more volume. It's what's called perceived volume. When you widen that scope, it just makes it sound louder and full. So in that case, I don't think we really took advantage of that when new elements were brought in. So next time you're doing this, pay attention to how everything is fitting in the mix. A good way of doing this is by turning down your volume really, really low, because what that's going to do is you got to listen to, can I hear every element clearly with the volume really, really low? That is a good way of figuring out what's too far front and what's not far enough. And just listen, can I hear everything clearly? If the answer is no, your mix is wrong. So that's a good thing to try out if you're not doing that already. I think you would have had a hard time hearing every element that was brought in during that chorus if that was the case. But look, I'm being picky just because I want to give you something that maybe you can use. I think the song was really, really great, and I think everybody here did as well. As always, thank you so much for submitting that, Markus. Wave to everybody again. If y'all like that, make sure to go follow Markus. He's got some really cool music out there that y'all need to go listen to. Jaded Basket Case said, love the blend of electronics with the live instruments. That's a really good point. A lot of people go electronic only, and then there's people like me who have a hard time adding electronic elements because I like organic instruments. It's just what I prefer if I can do that, because I don't feel like I can mix electronic elements with my organic instruments very well. You blended the two very, very well. Not a lot of people can do that. So we're going to do a bit of Q&A real quick. This always seems to be a very fun portion of the show. All right, can you give us a tip to make your bass cut into the mix, especially for small speakers? If you think of what the majority of people are listening to your music on, a lot of people these days are listening out of their phone or like a Bluetooth speaker or something like that in the car. We all know if you can get a car mix sounding good or a Bluetooth speaker to sound good with your music, you've done a great job of mixing it. A Bluetooth speaker is going to take your stereo file and it's going to make it, it's going to turn it into a mono file. So you hear a lot of people talk about mixing in mono. When you're mixing your music, you have to listen to everything in mono or up the center before you start panning everything out. That's how I do it. My pre-mix or my rough mix is getting levels where I want them with everything up the center. Because if it's super muddy with everything up the center, when somebody plays this out of their phone or a Bluetooth speaker or in the car, it's not going to sound the same. It's going to sound pretty rough. You know, that's a good way to make sure that your mix sounds good and how it's going to sound coming out of small speakers. Be careful with your low end. So you did ask about having your bass cut into the mix. Unfortunately, you have to be very careful about how much of your music is taking up those lower frequencies. So you have to make a decision where your instruments are going to fit. It's not the same for every song or every genre, I guess. You tend to have your kick drum and your bass guitar with competing frequencies, usually around 60 to 100 hertz seems to be the norm. You have to find ways for your kick drum and your bass to fit in the mix without overlapping altogether. So if you have a tone of kick drum that is very bass heavy, you have to be careful with that because that's going to sound like crap when it comes out through a Bluetooth speaker. So I usually put a high pass filter on the kick drum, usually around 30 hertz, just to get rid of some of that really low end that doesn't really matter to the song. And then if my kick drum and my bass guitar are overlapping really bad, with an EQ, you can scoop out frequencies from one or the other, or you can do, dadgummit, what's it called? Somebody help me. Sidechain. Thank you so much. Sidechain compression. When your kick drum hits, you can compress your bass guitar just in those moments. So it's not compressed the whole time. The two are working in tandem together, that when one comes out, you can compress the other just so it's not all coming through at the same time. That would be my best answer. Hope that helps. What exactly is mastering? Let's just compare it to mixing because I think that's the question you're asking. Mixing is more about taking all of your elements and mixing them together to make the song. And so you do this individually with tracks. You do this individually with groups of tracks. You're mixing all this stuff together. And then mastering is essentially taking the song as a whole, taking out some frequencies that need to come out, highlighting other frequencies. I like to add a little bit of compression to the whole thing just to kind of glue it together. The basic answer here is the difference between mixing and mastering is mixing is taking all of the individual parts and putting them together. And then mastering is taking the whole thing together and giving it that finishing touch to make it sound as good as you possibly can. What you'll find, unfortunately, in the music industry, there's gatekeepers all over the place in the music industry. Some of the most toxic gatekeepers will be the ones that think they know everything about mixing and mastering, and it's their way or the highway. What I've learned is that everybody has a way of doing things. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is if it sounds good, it's good. There are basic principles that can take a song, and there are things that you should do to it to give it a very clean, polished sound. If your song sounds good, it's good. You don't have to know everything. Sometimes you may put a compressor on there thinking you know exactly what you're doing with it. The end result is it sounds really good. And then you go look at it and you don't even have the compressor turned on. It doesn't matter. If your instruments sound good and your song sounds good, sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. But if you like the way it sounds, people are going to like the way it sounds too. I can hear a difference from songs that I recorded 3 years ago to the songs that I record now, and I can hear the difference. But the majority of people out there listening to my music probably can't tell too much of a difference. They may say the new stuff does sound a little bit cleaner than 3 years ago, but if they like the songs from 3 years ago, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. Again, hopefully that helps you guys. Awesome Q&A session. Thank you for everybody that submitted some questions there. It's always fun to just have a little bit of a conversation. All right, Jackson, you're up, man. Father Fahrenheit is hanging out. He has been a regular for a couple of months now, at least, if not longer. Always appreciative of people who come back and hang out with us. If you like what we're doing, make sure to give me a follow so you get notifications. I do this every week, and it seems to be really, really fun when we get to know each other. And I'm trying to build this community of musicians and create this place on social media that's not toxic. There are a lot of people out there that are doing song reviews that are just trying to make money. There's a lot of them that know what they're talking about. There's a lot of them that don't. I'm not here to try to make money off of you. I'm trying to give you some resources. I'm trying to have some fun and just create this really cool community of musicians here on social media. So the more I get to see you guys, the more we get to know each other, and it's a lot of fun. So Jackson is one of those people. So this is Father Fahrenheit submitted. I think this is song number 3 or 4 at this point. It's over on YouTube. Father Fahrenheit with a song brand new called Severance. So I'm really liking the feel to this. That piano is doing a great job of breaking up some of the, like, this could be something that could become very monotonous, but that piano really broke that up. Very simple. Everything is how it should be. So we have some sort of strings that's just coming up in the background, just lifting the guitars up some. And there's that piano again. So I feel like that piano is actually bringing in a little bit of dissonance. I'm not sure that every note that was hit with the piano was in key as it was supposed to be. The whole song sounds very simple and smooth and just very relaxing, and then you have this piano come in that just breaks it up some, and like I said, adds a little bit of dissonance. Again, just kind of brings a dynamic to the table that I think was very well used. I'm really trying hard to find something to critique here, and I think that's a testament to how you were progressing with your mixes. That sounded really good. 2 minutes long, 2:08. I wish it was a little bit longer. I think you could still add some more time to that. Even if it's not you singing, even if you have to repeat a part, you could do that. You could bring in something that just changes it up even more. There's a lot of things you could have added to that, I think, would be my biggest critique. I wanted to listen to it a little bit more. The piano was a repeating part. I would have liked to see the piano continue to do something else. That's the only thing I can think of to really critique there, Jackson. The song is great. I just wanted to hear it a little bit longer than I did. It seems like you're getting better every time I hear something. Keep plugging away and keep making it happen. I think it's pretty cool that you are out hiking at the moment. Technology is so freaking cool that you can be out on a hike right now and tuning into this. So as always, thank you for submitting another great song from our friend here on Devin Song Reviews. Always doing some cool stuff. Undercover Band said the piano is my favorite. Yeah, I think it was that one element that, like, everything sounded good, and then you had that come in and it was just like, oh, this is a little bit more interesting now. It's a little less, let's just sit back and listen to it. And now I'm like, I'm intrigued by it. Yeah, and then you said it did kind of sound out of key, but it might have been the scale he used. Yeah, I agree. I'm not really sure. I don't want to say definitively that it was out of key. Even if it was, that dissonance was really cool. I wouldn't have taken it out. Father Fahrenheit says, thanks so much, Devin. You're the best. I appreciate that. I'll take it. So next song up is going to be from a new friend from that tuned in last week. I didn't catch his name. I feel like I should, because I hopped into his live afterwards and hung out for a little bit. His artist name is Lanterns in Paris. He submitted a song that was over on YouTube. It's called Secret Love, and it's actually a live recording of him playing at a small venue of some sort. And so this is a good example of, like, when it comes to song reviews, the three things that I'm paying attention to. One, the songwriting, production of the song, how the song is arranged, how well the lyrics are put together, the way that you sing it, and the way that it is presented. Second is instrumentation. So that is how all of the different elements come together to create the song. Third is more about the mix. Those are kind of the three elements that I will review. People will ask, well, do you review cover songs? Well, sure. It's not really typically what I do, because you didn't write the song, so you didn't have anything to do really with the production unless you just went off the wall different with it. So it kind of limits what I can review. A good example of this is not a recorded song. So when it comes to a mix, there's nothing here to review. So what I can review is the songwriting and the instrumentation. This is also just him and an acoustic guitar, so we're a little limited on that. You can submit stuff like this, but it does make me have to be a little bit pickier on what I'm critiquing. But anyways, he was a cool guy. He hung out with us last week, and I got to hang out with him in his live, so I wanted to give him a shot. So this is Lanterns in Paris with a song called Secret Love, live and unplugged. So one thing kind of right off the bat with this one is he kind of had two different intros there. Still kept the intro under 30 seconds, which I think is really the limit. But it wouldn't have hurt to like pick one or the other. I like the guitar riff. He's playing this on an acoustic, which if you've played acoustic and electric, acoustics take a lot more finger strength to get a really clean sound come out.
She took my hand and said everything would be okay. With my heart in her pocket, she walks away.
Yeah, it's a cool riff. I think vocally it's a little nasally. That just comes with practice. But it very much has that like old school emo sound to it, like the early November type thing. So it's pretty cool.
I go through loops 'cause you're my lucky charms. Morning after morning, looking at you and
so that perfect example of the singing as he's getting louder and projecting, the singing sounds better. So that's a really good indication that he has the ability to take some of that nasalness, and it's just you just have to train yourself to stop that. Like be confident in your abilities. I'd really like to hear this song with a full production behind it. If the production of a song is good on acoustic in a live setting like this, usually it just sounds 10 times better when you put everything else behind it.
Under your sheets, standing in the rain, screaming your name. How could you leave me? I'll never be the same. How could I be the secret you keep under your sheets? 'Cause at least I know you'll love me in my dreams, 'cause that's as real as it will ever be. She took my hand and said everything would be okay with my
Yeah, straight up early 2000s emo right there. Great. So that is Lanterns in Paris with a live and unplugged version of Secret Love. That's a really cool song. What people forget too often is you are so used to hearing recordings, and the production value of recordings has gone up so much. You know, it costs very minimal amount of money compared to what it did for independent musicians to record and release music. So we hear a lot of really good music a lot of the time. What that does is it trains your ear to think that musicians are always perfect. So you hear that and you go, well, the vocal, you know, he was flat a good bit of it. Like I said, there was some nasally things happening there, but this is a live setting. This is what musicians sound like when they go play live. They're not perfect. If you think it's perfect when you go to a show, it's probably because they have backing tracks and they're not even playing the instruments like you think they are. It's easy to be critical and say, well, there was a lot of things that I could pick apart there. Vocally, he has more talent than he's comfortable with, or maybe that was at the end of the show and his mouth is dry, or maybe he's been singing for a while and his voice is out a little bit. But it doesn't matter. I think it was good. Has that early 2000s emo vibe to it. Like I said, reminds me of like the early November, which I really liked. Something about the early November that caught my attention early on was the fact that vocally there were a lot of imperfections even in the recording. You take a band like Real Friends, utilize a lot of mic proximity stuff. It sounded like a lot of his recordings were away from the microphone, and because of that, there were some imperfections in the vocals. So I think that is a stylistic choice that some of those bands make. You know, that's just one of those songs that kind of reminds me of that. I would love to hear that as a full production because I think it's a good song. Like I said, I have to be overly critical on what I can review because I can't really review the mix in that case. So Markus says, I think there's a lot of potential there. Keep going. That's what I agree with. From the interactions I've had with him so far over the last week, seems like a really cool guy. He's out there making some music. So anybody that's given it a shot, I'm proud of you. Keep at it. The next one that was submitted is Rodrigo Aguilera, who was here in the chat. I think you're still here. Yep. So this is a song called Void by Rodrigo Aguilera. Let's check it out.
You can feel nothing at all.
So I like how the song is setting up.
Well,
that first 30 seconds usually tells you a lot about what the song is going to be sounding like. It's very crucial to set that table in the first 30 seconds.
hang on, something's wrong within me. Yeah,
So another example, I think that one lead right there is too far in front of the vocal.
well, something broke down.
Very minor.
I was born to rise to your eyes. Hey, jump with me.
So I was kind of expecting that to...
Freezing cold.
We're keeping things pretty even right now, I think dynamic-wise. I haven't listened to this song all the way through, so I'm hoping that we move it dynamically before the end.
The path that lies ahead of us. Something's wrong with
Everything EQ-wise and all the instruments, it sounds like it's mixed very well.
and even though I
It's very clean.
don't have me down. Say, my lover, just one more night. Ooh,
Love the vocals. So there's that dynamic change. Okay. Very, very jazzy. Very jazz club feel to that ending right there. Okay, so let's talk about this song, Void by Rodrigo Aguilera, who is here. So wave to everybody so they can see you. If you liked it, obviously go follow. The song is very, very relaxed, dynamically even pretty much throughout until that very ending. So I knew that something had to come my way. I kind of wanted it to come in earlier, but look, this is your song. Not everything has to follow the same formula. I am glad though that you did something just to change it up, because if you didn't, I would have been a little bit disappointed. The mix sounded very clean, as I mentioned. There's not a whole lot of different things happening, but sometimes that can even be mixed the wrong way because there's not enough to fill up all the space. You did a great job of filling the listening space. The tone of the vocals are great. It was easy listening. The ending there kind of felt like I was like at a jazz club. Obviously, whatever musicians are in your band, or if it's just you or whatever, you obviously know what being a musician is, and you're bringing elements and you're bringing a production style to your song that sounds like you've been doing this for a little while. As a musician, there are things that I can hear in that were musician decisions that you made, that you knew exactly what you were doing and you were intentional about it. So I can appreciate the crap out of those decisions you made. And you just said it's a one-man project. So really great job with that song. I don't have a whole lot to pick apart there. I think the mix was done well. I think the song is well written. The only thing is my brain wanted to hear more of a breakup in the first 2.5 minutes instead of waiting till the end. But again, every song can't sound the same. That's just ridiculous if everything sounded the same. So I think you did a great job. I like that song. Can't wait to hear more from you, Rodrigo Aguilera, with a song called Void. So this was a submitted one from a couple of weeks ago from a band called Openfield, and the song is called Atmosphere. Check it out. Let's get up and dance. Grab a beer. Let's go. Ching. What's up, Pocket Hoppin'? A lot of energy to this song for sure. The vocals just kind of disappeared right here at the chorus. See, that's way more up front than what I just heard in the chorus. That's weird. See, this is the vocals here are sitting right. This is well mixed right here. That chorus, the vocals kind of got thrown back. But listen, if you listen to the drums and then listen to the bass line and how they are working together. We got some slapping happening on the bass. But it's not taking away from the drum kit. So then you have, that rhythm guitar is just kind of playing off of that bass line. Very, very common for this type of music. Yeah, right here, there's something that's coming in that's just shoving the vocals back. I can't quite make it out what it is. So I don't know, there's some element there, like, I don't know if it's a synth or something like that, but it keeps coming in for those choruses, and it's bringing like some distortion and like some really muddy reverb or something, and then like the vocals there on the chorus had added reverb to it maybe, And just everything in the chorus vocally gets pushed back, and there was just some weird something happening there in the chorus. And we got the nice fadeaway that goes on for maybe a little too long. It's still going. And we're done. Okay, so that was Openfield with a song called Atmosphere. Definitely something weird happening with the vocals in the chorus. I think the way to approach this is, let's talk about when you're mixing a song and what you're listening to while you're mixing. Once you have your rough mix done, you tend to spend the majority of your time mixing in the loudest parts of the song, or the parts of the song that have the most instruments or things going on. The reason being is, if you're not going to take the time to separate the sections out and mix them differently, which I don't typically do unless it absolutely needs to be done, because then you're talking about taking a lot longer and it's harder to get it all to sound like it's put together well. If you separate it too much, you can easily make it sound like you mixed it separately. Maybe that's what happened there. I don't know. Other than the chorus, everything sounded like it was mixed really well. Talking about the song itself, instrumentation is really good. The bass line with the rhythm guitar and the way the drums were playing, those three instruments right there were just kind of had that funkiness going, had a lot of energy to it, played together very well. It's just whatever that added element was that I couldn't quite make out was just adding some more noise to it than needed to be there. Could have been one of those things that either needed to be tweaked or just taken out of the song because it was fine without it. May have just been trying to do more than what was needed in that instance. The song itself is good. There's just some mixing that needs to happen there to pull that together. A lot of energy to it. Kind of made me move some. So Rule of Guns is here, said the Killers vibe. I can definitely see that. Pocket Hoppin' said, yeah, vocals got drowned a little in the chorus. Definitely did. I don't know exactly why that happened. Markus said, digging the overall energy in this one. Great vocals and instruments. Yeah, the vocals were really good. Instruments sounded good. It's just purely a mixing issue with anything that was wrong with that. But again, we're being picky so that we can have a critique, because we can always get better and take that next step to creating a more polished end result. Yeah, everybody said good song though. Another one that was submitted a couple weeks ago from Lynz Floren, and the song is called Los Angeles Evangelist. It's really hard to say. Los Angeles Evangelist by Lynz Floren. Got some organ in there. That's cool.
LA wants to steal my folk and give me rock and roll. No one will come see me when I play solo. They say add drum machine, cowbell or a tambourine. Just think of the places you could go. These songs come from
All right, so the bass guitar has some low end that needed to be taken out. Definitely overdoing the kick drum. And I kind of heard from the get-go that there was some low end issues, and I think that's what it is.
That crowd is gleefully pretentious and unbearable, morally corrupt and indefensible.
Yeah, that bass guitar is definitely out there.
It's just so Los Angelical, so Los Angelical. This is the place to make.
So especially with a song like this, but the majority of the time with any genre, any song, if you listen specifically for the snare and the kick drum, and listen to how the other instruments match the level of those two things, and if you're having a hard time hearing them, like the kick drum, then you can go in and figure out what is it that is overtaking those elements. Your kick and your snare you should be able to hear that 100% of the time, unless the drums aren't playing, obviously. But this has a cool vibe to it.
It's what they want from me, and I try to get it for free, but I got to keep my dignity, and that ain't easy here in Los Angeles. They want to use me up, feed me to the machine, then take all the credit when I end up on screen, but that is what I came
So I guess that's I think that's an organ. Organ. That's my southern accent. My southern accent plus alcohol changes organ to Oregon. Don't mind me, y'all. There's the y'all.
It's your attention I'm feeding on, and all I want is more. It takes skin that's thick and strong to leave it all on the floor. Without making you feel bored, and that's hard out here in Los Angeles.
Cool way to end it. I like that. Okay, so again, that was Lynz Floren with Los Angeles Evangelist, which is fun to say. That type of music is not generally what I go seeking out, but I think it was really cool and well done, put together song. I think the bass guitar was overtaking the kick drum, and that's just a next step type thing for something like that. I think the song itself had a cool vibe to it. The organ was a really cool touch. You don't hear that all that often. One of the things I noticed with the vocals, there was sort of a lack of harmonies, but what was happening was the organ was sort of doing what the harmonies would do, because there was some stuff in there like, oh, I could hear maybe he could put some oohs or ahs in there. As soon as I'm thinking that, the organ is actually doing the same thing that the harmonies would. I think I would have highlighted that somewhat more than it was, just because it is something different from the norm. But the song was great. I think it just needs to be mixed a little bit better to make sure that the instruments are shining through the way that they're supposed to. It's been a while since I talked about top-down mixing, so let's do that. When I was talking about there with the kick drum and the snare should always be where you can hear it. If you're in the middle of a mix and you want to see how your volumes are working together, turn everything down super, super low, like almost to where you can't hear it. If you can't hear your snare and kick coming through when it's turned down really low, then you know for a fact that they're not at the level that they need to be. When I do mixing, I do top-down mixing, and I start with the drum set, specifically the kick and the snare. As I'm adding instruments, I start with my bass. I sort of match the level of my bass guitar to the level of the kick, and then make sure that they're not competing frequencies so that you can hear them both. And then I'll bring in, like the rhythm guitar, see how that is sitting in the mix with the bass guitar and the kick and the snare. Typically take my rhythm guitars and sort of match them to where the hi-hat is, and the level of the hi-hat seems to be a good place to start. And then as I'm just bringing in everything, I'm just making sure that I can hear the kick and the snare. Every time I add an instrument, I turn it way, way down, and I go, okay, I just added that element to it or that instrument to it. Can I still hear the other ones that I've already added? Each new layer that you add, repeat that process to make sure that there's a reason that you're even adding that new instrument or that new element to the song, and you're not drowning out the stuff that has come before. That is my strategy behind mixing and using the top-down method of starting with the drums and bringing in the instruments, the instrument groups one at a time, and making sure that I can still hear the drums. So yeah, you can avoid some of those pitfalls and problems like that. The reason I start with the bass guitar right after the drums is because that's the one, like, you can almost count on. You're going to have some competing frequencies between your kick drum and your bass that you have to deal with in one way or another. Starting out with the bass and matching that and trying to get it right just makes it a whole lot easier as you add instruments. You don't have to go back and try to fix something that you can fix from the beginning. So cool. That was a cool song. Like that a lot. Keep it going. Next song up is a song from the letter M, Thousands. Yeah, we're a mess out here sometimes. It's fine. As long as you are having fun. Ooh. That's cool. I like that. Oh dang, we're taking this super dark and minor.
Like a flower in flame. The wind going off of butterflies into no one dark couldn't save my
Alright, so everything sounds very jumbled up right now, but it's also kind of cool for what this song is. So we got little things happening in the background. It's kind of cool. Not super clean, but the way this song is going, it doesn't sound like it should be. I'm feeling it. How about y'all? Give me something. Let's go. There's something about this this type of song with a solo that's done on an acoustic guitar that just it hits different. So now we're mixing in an electric guitar with another lead. My brain is like confused right now. M1000s with A Love Talismanic. It is a weird song, and I don't know how else to put it. I don't mean that negatively. That was just a weird song. Kind of cool, though. Not a very clean mix, but like I mentioned, I think it works for a song like this. My brain was confused at points there. I didn't really like the fact that we had two different lead parts happening there at the end, where you had the acoustic lead and then electric lead came in. It was very confusing. I was very conflicted on what to listen to. That's not really what you want from your lead guitar. Going back to what we had talked about with like the piano in Jackson's song, bringing some dissonance to it, there was a lot of dissonance in this song, and that's what kind of made it feel weird. A minor key tends to feel different than a major key anyways. Typically a song that's in a major key is pretty happy and upbeat, feels good, and then minor keys tend to not feel as good. So that song, the darkness and the dissonance and the minor key of it all definitely brought out some emotion of just like uncomfortability. Kind of made me feel uncomfortable throughout it, which is kind of cool. I would have probably added some more movement with some of the background things that were happening, just because it wasn't a super wide mix. And I think, you know, even the thing that we heard there at the end, you could have moved that from one side to the other. If you're going to make it feel uncomfortable, go all in. Have stuff moving around so you can't get that comfort of it sitting in the same spot for too long. That's really all I think I would have done differently, other than decide on which lead guitar you wanted to use there. I really like the acoustic one. If those tracks were sent to me to mix, 100% I would have said that electric guitar is gone. And again, this comes back to when you mix your own music, it's hard to make those decisions because you may really like the lead that you wrote on the acoustic guitar, and you may really like the lead you did on the electric guitar, and you're like, oh, I can find a way to make these work together. I promise you, I've been there, I've done that, and I've had to throw away a lead that I was like, man, I really wanted to use that. I had to make a decision and I had to go with one. So that was a good example of that. You have to make those tough decisions sometimes. Really interesting song, kind of weird, but super cool. So weird doesn't mean bad. It just means it was very different than normal. So Sinclair says it's got a nice vibe, makes me wish it was raining. Pocket Hoppin says almost like Mars Volta meets Brand New. Pocket Hoppin also said I might have left out that electric lead, takes away from the acoustic solo, but still good. So we agree. And then Sinclair says I would second that. Mason Crow comes in with it was catchy, but not in a traditional sense, pretty chill. This is a band called Eleventeen with a song called Gasoline. Let's take a listen.
I let the motor rev.
Okay.
She's drinking gasoline.
Yeah, she is.
Makes everything you said disappear in a screen. I tried to walk away.
There it is.
Stuck standing in my shoes. Got nothing left to say. Baby, nothing left to lose. I know the reason I get up and leave and I'm gone. My mind is broken and I can't.
All right. I really want to hear the drums way more than I am now. They're also sounding very flat. That snare is a very flat sound to it.
Because I love that sound, rev it into gear. I tried to walk away, stuck standing in my shoes. Got nothing left to say, baby, nothing left to lose.
Nonetheless, you can hear the snare and you can hear the kick drum. You can hear the toms. The cymbals are there. It's not terrible. It's just that's a very, very flat, dry sounding snare. So that where you heard that lead come in with the rhythm guitars need to come back so that you don't have to push the lead too much. If you had brought those rhythm guitars back, the lead would have come through better than it did right there. I can rock out to this though all day. I just imagine myself sitting and watching them play on stage. I bet it would be so much fun.
Get your cars into the staging lanes. It's time to put up or shut up.
What? I don't have a clue what that. Okay, that was a band called Eleventeen with a song called Gasoline. Very interesting song. Very much the classic rock sound to it. Vocals was really cool. A lot of muddiness in that mix. I'm not gonna lie. There was a lot going on. Different instruments. The instruments didn't work together very well. They seemed very individual, whereas the drum set kind of had a flat sound to it. The rhythm guitars were there, but they had some weird like middle frequencies coming through, creating a boxiness almost. And then the lead guitar comes in, but it's hiding behind the rhythm guitar. Just mix wise overall, the instruments didn't come together the way that you would want them to. So it kind of had a more live setting feel to it, which did kind of put me in that space of like, I'm sitting here listening to them play on stage, which is fine. Recordings are typically going to be more cleaned up than a live setting. And we all know that, but I don't think it made the song sound bad or anything like that. I just think it's, from a mix perspective, wasn't great. Instrumentation wise, it sounds like a band that's been playing together for a little while. Sounded pretty tight, worked okay. It's just from a mix perspective, they didn't work together. The instruments were fine, but they just from a mix perspective, they didn't work. It was a cool production, had me moving, had me enjoying it. That was it. So that was Eleventeen with Gasoline.